You cannot be derailed from your journey. You exist in a paradigm of perfection, meaning that all experience is perfect. All happenings are divine. There is no possibility of stepping outside of this paradigm of perfection. So if it is occurring, then it is occurring because it is perfect. It is perfectly aligned with the moment and all those that are in the moment. This is always the case because Hi, welcome to today's channeling. I want to start off by saying please always like my videos. It's so super important. I'm not making anything from YouTube advertising, not meaning that I only make a few cents or something. I literally am not part of that program. The only way that I'm actually making money is if people buy my products. I only sell products if people who haven't already bought my products see my videos. And those new people, new eyeballs, only see my videos if YouTube decides to show my material to a broader audience that have never seen my stuff before. And YouTube will only do that if you have liked my videos. So there's actually a causal relationship between how much I'm earning and whether or not you have liked my videos. So if you would like to donate to me, then please donate a like. These videos take me about 5 hours to create. I do it for free. If we could just work as a team, as a community, and if you could start by just liking my stuff, and if you want to comment and share, that's even better. But just the like at the bare minimum, if you could, on everything that I do, please, and that would be so helpful. If you haven't read this book yet, I highly recommend that you do read this book. People are really enjoying it. Some are saying that it literally cut years off the spiritual journey. So I recommend that you get a copy yourself. It's in the paperback, ebook, or audiobook. The title is The 3 Awakenings That Save Humanity. And the links for that are below this video. If you would like to have a private channeling session with me, that's also possible. All you need to do is go below this video and you'll see a link which will take you to an inquiry form. Fill an inquiry form, then we'll have a conversation and see if there's a fit. Now on to today's topic. This question comes care of one of my wonderful viewers, and kind of paraphrasing what they've asked is this: is it possible to sacrifice oneself for another too much and thereby incur karmic debt because you're limiting their journey by just helping them too much? This question also included, can Jesus be the one that answers it? So, to kind of conclude this thing about sacrifice, well, I think, unless someone asks another really great question, I'm going to bring Jesus back in again today to answer this. Greetings and thank you for the question. Is it possible to sacrifice oneself too much and thereby incur karmic debt because you are limiting another's journey? It is our pleasure again today to include Jesus into the amalgamated group being so that he may answer this from his perspective. And here I am again to share my insight and my wisdom on this topic of sacrifice. I am flattered and delighted that you have called on me once again to participate in this discussion. This week I would like to begin by saying that as you are watching this now and seeing the channeler channel me into this co-experience, that it does not imply that the channeler is in some way given special access to me. You also can access me in a same way. There is a connectiveness between all things. The all is a lattice of connection. And just as you are connected to every other person in your nation by virtue of roads, streets, avenues, highways, canals, and so on, then this is a good metaphor of how you are also connected to everything in the all, including to me. However, the route of connection is far less circuitous than the many roads and streets and avenues you may need to take to reach the home of someone on the other side of the country in which you reside. All that is required is that you call upon me, and then I will be there in an instant. And this is possible because just as you are, I am an infinite being. However, in your current incarnation, you are not living within your infinity, meaning to say, you are not conscious of your infinity all at the same time. Whereas in my current state, I am aware of my entire infinity at the same time, meaning that I am infinitely conscious. I have an infinite expanse, and in all places within that infinity, I am in a state of full consciousness. And this implies that I can connect to you in a state of full consciousness, and at the same time connect to another in a state of full consciousness. And in fact, I can connect with all aspects of the all simultaneously in a state of absolute full consciousness. So, I make this point to illustrate that there is not a queue, there is not a line. You do not have to wait until you have reached a level of deservedness or a level of reverence where I will prioritize you to make the connection, regardless of who you are or what the state of your life is or what you have done in your past. If you sincerely wish to make a connection with me, then I will be there instantly, regardless of what other activities and what other connections I am also making within my infinity in that moment. Because of your journey as the Earth human and what is on the horizon for you, and also my own journey and my embodiment of the humanity being, which means that I can provide a service to you of being the gateway through which you can enter into the unity of the group being of which you are an aspect, the humanity being. Then I encourage you to reach out to me and to have conversations with me and to make a tangible, palpable connection with me, because this connectiveness with me will very naturally increase your connectiveness to the unity of the humanity being. Surrendering yourself to me, giving yourself to the white light of unity which I embody, is an inevitable part of your journey. And I'm offering myself as a conduit through which you can do that in a way which is culturally calibrated, it could be said, in a paradigm of definition that makes it possible for you to a greater extent than perhaps if you were to consider it in a more esoteric context. So, dear one, who is my beloved, connect with me whenever it is that you desire to do so. Now I will turn my focus to this question for which I was requested to be present today, and gladly am so. Is it possible to sacrifice oneself for another too much and thereby incur karmic debt because you limit the journey of another? I will begin by saying that if your intent is originating from the light, meaning to say that what it is you do for another is a demonstration of your quality as the light, then no karmic debt can be incurred. Even if you are over-sacrificing oneself, that is to say that you are helping another so much that you are in effect smothering them, and they are not having the opportunity to have challenging experiences which could grow them, which could further them along the journey of knowing thyself to completion experientially, the divine purpose. Even so, even in that context, you would not incur karmic debt because the quality of your motivation is invigorated with the light. However, of course, there is still a gradient of wisdom within the light. When one begins to polarize to the light, it does not infer that they are immediately all-knowing, that they are immediately in possession of the highest wisdoms. It is still a process of learning and discovering, just as it is still for me. It is not until the final moment where one has coalesced back into the ultimate being that the state of total and complete access to wisdom is achieved, or is, rather to say, more specifically, realized. So, if you give to another so much that it is limiting their journey, then that is just a perspective. Because perhaps their journey includes the ability to have the realization that as long as they remain in this paradigm with you, that their access to growing experiences will be limited. So, that is their journey. It is not a limitation of their journey, but literally that is their journey. And this is always the case. You cannot be derailed from your journey. You exist in a paradigm of perfection, meaning that all experience is perfect. All happenings are divine. There is no possibility of stepping outside of this paradigm of perfection. So if it is occurring, then it is occurring because it is perfect. It is perfectly aligned with the moment and all those that are in the moment. This is always the case because you are manifesting your experience. And the experience that you are manifesting is a very direct metaphor of your energetic quality. Your energetic quality is the literal vibration that you hold, which is based on your beliefs and based on your current focus, and it will manifest into your perception a pre-existing possibility. And it has to be this way because the journey is about discovering who you are. And life is feedback data on who you are being. So how could you navigate to a greater understanding of what you are if the feedback data you are receiving is not relevant to who you are being? How could you calibrate? How could you know when to go in one direction or another if the data that you receive through the proxy of your life is not 100% relevant to who you are being? Anything other than that would be a pointless design. If you were to be having experiences which are just random and meaningless and are not consequential, not in any causality with who you are being, then it would be a complete waste of experience. So, in the One's infinite wisdom, it created a experiential context, a matrix of illusion, where every experience that you have is absolutely relevant to who you have been being, so that you can take into your analytical capacities the observations of what has occurred and determine what it means about who I have been being. And then through that analysis, have an ongoing process of epiphany and realization about who one is being. And then calibrate your beingness to be in greater alignment of what you are beginning to realize about who you are. And of course, you are the one. You are the light. You are connected to the One. You are connected to all other aspects of the expanded being which you are. And the first incremental iteration of the expanded being which you are is the humanity being. You are an aspect of this special group, just as all others are the same being. And so, bringing this back to where we began, if you are having feelings and thoughts that perhaps you are sacrificing yourself too much for another, then give this greater introspection. Because what you are doing is you are utilizing the feedback. You will not break out of this holding pattern if you find yourself living this over and over, if you are not taking the opportunities to be introspective about your experiences, if you are not analyzing the feedback data which is being provided to you. If you do not be introspective in this way and just continue to assume that all of your life experiences are completely random and meaningless, then you will find that you are stuck in repeating patterns, because the pattern cannot break until you have transcended what is creating it or what is manifesting it. You are manifesting this repeating cycle because you lack the self-understanding to manifest in a different way. And so what is required is epiphany. And this epiphany, this expansion in self-realization, will actually transcend you above this pattern. And the pattern will no longer continue to reoccur. So, make this part of your life habit to introspectively analyze your experiences. And this is particularly pertinent when it is an experience which you found to be unpleasant. Because if you do not have this habit, then as you are probably already beginning to realize, there is a likelihood that you are going to have that experience again, because you have not been able to take into oneself the expanding realization which is contained within it. And so, as an artifact of the perfection, you must in some form have that experience again, so that you can have the growth which is necessary at this stage of your journey of self-understanding through experience. You cannot ascend or transcend to a higher level of experience and thereby epiphany until this one you are currently going through has been realized. It is the only way you can access the higher wisdom, is by incorporating the lesser wisdom. So if you are having experiences which are unpleasant, give it introspective analysis. And you may find that it is not the first iteration of this experience. It has come to you before in perhaps a different form, but fundamentally, it's the same experience. And when we say fundamentally it's the same experience, I mean it in this way. What are you feeling? What emotional state predominates? And then look into your past and ask oneself, when was the last time my predominant emotional state was the same as it is right now? And you will find the most recent time that you held that predominant emotional state, which is the same as what you are holding now in this current unwanted experience. It was the seed. When you held that emotional state, you planted the seed for the future experience which you are now going through. This is how it works. Your emotional quality, incorporated with your focus, is creating future moments. However, allow me to clarify that statement. You are a being of manifestation, not a being of creation. There is only one being of creation, and that is the One. And all aspects of the One, all individuations contained within, which are really just existing within the illusory context, are not creators, but instead are manifestors. So, each moment has an infinite number of perspectives. It has an infinite number of possible permutations, all pre-existing. Very similar to the idea of when a game is coded and one plays the game. Perhaps you go on a route and take a particular strategy and do particular things, which in all of the many millions or even billions of times that game has been played, no one has ever done it exactly the same way as you did it. And how is this possible when the game has been played many billions of times? It is because all of the possibilities are pre-existing. They're all laying dormant as potential within the game. And then you, as the game player, choose your own sequence and combination and permutation of all of these possibilities to create the unique experience. In a similar way, for each moment that you pass through, there is an infinite number of permutations, an infinite number of ways that moment could be experienced. And yet, what makes it into your perception, what it is that you perceive of the infinite number of possibilities, is that which is most highly resonant, or in fact, perfectly resonant with who you are being, your energetic quality. However, not in the exact moment that you experience it, but rather in the moments that preceded it. So the experience that you are having now is, in the most part, not because of who you are being this very moment, but because of who you were being in the past. In the third density human experience, there is a lag. There is very direct causality between who you are being and what you are experiencing. But that causality is separated by a lag. And this is a necessary part of the design, because if you lived in a paradigm of instant manifestation, when you are still lost in the illusion, when you are still believing that you are the avatar, when you are still in possession of a fear of the death of the avatar, then this gives rise to beliefs and thoughts which can be self-harming and which occasionally one will entertain. If there was a paradigm of instant manifestation, then you can see this would be problematic. And so the lag is necessary so that one does not manifest their own oblivion over and over. Although even so, it is still a very central theme to the human experience of manifesting one's own oblivion. However, because of this lag, the oblivion does not come instantaneously, and it's still existing within this space, an opportunity for much experience until the manifested demise comes to be. But having this lag also comes with its own problematic nature. And I say problematic not to infer that the one has been faulty in its creation. This is not the case at all. But rather to illustrate that it comes with its own challenges, because the gap between who you are being and the experiences you manifest is so large that the typical human does not see the causality. And so they continue to blunder through their lives, for lack of a better word, stuck in these reoccurring loops, which perhaps may expand their entire life. The entire expanse of their life is caught trapped in several repeating patterns, and they are never able to transcend them and get access to a completely new paradigm of experience, because they were never able to perceive the causality of who they are being, what they are focusing on, and the experiences which they have. So, breaking out of these loops, using your experience in the wisest way possible so that your expansion into greater self-realization is accelerated to the maximum extent which is possible for you, is to, as I have said, be introspectively analytical of your experiences, so that you can discover the root. What was the seed which gave birth to this unwanted experience? And when that is understood, take into oneself the understanding that because of my emotional reaction to that experience which happened in the past, I have manifested a similar experience which is equally unpleasant, very similar in quality in that way. So, if I were to entertain that emotional reaction again, then I'm going to manifest or plant the seed for yet another experience which is yet to come, which will be similar in quality. It's unpleasant. I don't want that experience. Therefore, the only solution, the only way to break out of this repeating pattern, to be sure that that unpleasant experience isn't going to come to you again in some new form, is by choosing an emotional reaction this time, which is entirely different, which is of the light, which is love and its derivatives. So, to provide a specific example, If you had an experience which made you sad, perhaps, let us say in this experience, that you had an interaction with somebody who is important to you, and their way of treating you, or the things that they said, gave you a sense of sadness. Not because they were speaking about some other story, which is a sad story, but really because you were feeling unloved, unappreciated. If you entertain that emotional quality of sadness, of loneliness, of being underappreciated, and you wallow in that unpleasant emotional state, then you are planting the seed for some other experience which will have that same emotional quality, that same energetic pattern, signature. And again, it will be unpleasant. And perhaps it will be the consequence of an interaction with that same person who is important to you. And if this continues to be the cycle, it will become a downwardly spiraling dynamic, which ultimately could end in the demise of your relationship. Because there will be this continual manifesting of a very similar scenario. And as it is a repeating cycle of the darkness, it is a spiraling downward. And life in its wisdom understands that if you were not able to take on board the revelation of self through this unpleasant experience, then the volume at which you received it was insufficient. And so this will necessitate that when the experience comes to you again, that the volume is amplified to increase the chances that this is going to cross the threshold of the epiphany. And you can thereby take it into oneself, expand in your self-realization, and transcend this experience, thereby breaking the pattern. Clearly, this is unwanted. To have this unpleasant experience again and again and again and again, always amplifying in its intensity, in its unpleasantness. So, instead, when it occurs, if you are disciplined, such that you don't become the slave of your emotions, and instead you can hold a state of conscious awareness that creates a space for introspective analysis of what has just occurred. Perhaps even go into it deep enough to make the connection to past events, and perhaps go all the way back to when this pattern first occurred, probably at some time in your childhood. But importantly, the gem which will break you out of this pattern is to make the choice in this moment of lucidity, when you are consciously aware of what you are doing. Choose to hold an emotional state which is from the lightness end of the spiritual spectrum. And the easiest is always gratitude. Gratitude is the doorway into the ladder of the light, the incremental elevation of your vibration, polarizing into the light, becoming more invigorated by what you actually are, is gratitude. It is the easiest. And so, you can be grateful for the experience providing you this opportunity to choose differently. Be grateful to the person who interacted with you and gave rise to this percolating of this sadness, which is unwanted, for playing their part in your expanding self-understanding. And then this emotional quality of gratitude is going to plant the seed for future experiences, where those future experiences will be similar in quality to what you have now consciously drawn into your perception by being the master of manifestation. You will have future experiences which are conducive to feeling gratitude. And I say conducive because all of your experiences are neutral. They are just indifferent feedback data on who you are being. The meaning they contain is the meaning that you give them. And so this is why it's possible for one person to have an experience and call it dreadful, awful, the worst moment of my life, and yet another can have the exact same experience and yet call it the greatest blessing of their life so far. Clearly, this is only possible if the meaning is derived not from an inherent quality of the experience, but rather from the meaning and definition one gives it. So, this is the same as saying you are completely empowered to feel however you wish to feel at any moment, irrespective of how that moment presents, of what the circumstances and scenarios may be. And therefore, the master can be within a context of physical experience which is very difficult indeed, and yet still be in a state of total and utter bliss. But of course, it's very unlikely that the master would find oneself in that experiential scenario, because they always entertain emotional qualities from the lightness end of the spiritual spectrum. And so every seed they plant is manifesting experiences which are of that quality. And this is pertinent to this discussion because I am the master of my emotional state. I am the master of manifesting the experiences I desire. And so my crucifixion was not done to me, but instead was manifested by me. My predominant state was of the light. My predominant emotion was love of a very elevated type in terms of the frequency of my vibration. And thereby default, I am going to be manifesting scenarios which are full of love and all qualities derived from love. And this is why I was so adored in the places that I went. You prostrated yourself before me in a demonstration of your love and gratefulness for me. This was my reality manifesting in a way which was entirely conducive to my predominant emotional state. That was the feedback data I was receiving on my beingness. I was loved with great intensity everywhere that I went. And so, for me to have this experience of crucifixion, it required very conscientious and conscious manifestation to bring about this experience. So, taking this full circle, this conversation began with this paradigm of, is it possible to sacrifice oneself for another too much and thereby incur karmic debt because you are limiting their journey? If you are motivated by the light, then no. You are not incurring karmic debt. However, it is entirely possible you are trapping yourself in a repeating pattern which you will be stuck in unless you are able to expand in your self-realization and transcend the pattern. So, specifically, what is the emotional quality that predominates when you have these thoughts? That emotional quality is still a part of your energetic dynamic which you do not fully understand, which you have not yet become the master of. And it is not until you can find yourself in conducive situations to that emotional quality, yet you choose differently, that you are the master of that emotional quality. So, as a practical exercise going forward, the next time that you have this thought, be very mindful of what your emotional state is and look back into your recent past and discover when was the last time that you held this emotional quality, and realize the causality. And then in this current iteration, or if this current iteration has passed and it's too late, then make the determination that in the next iteration of this cycle that you are going to remain consciously aware rather than being sucked into the pit of emotion. And in this conscious space, choose differently. Choose wakefully. Choose wisely. An emotional quality which is fully expressive of who and what you actually are. And you are a being of the light and nothing but the light. And therefore, the energetic quality that you would contain in this state of self-realization will only be of the light and nothing but the light. Because to entertain an emotional quality which is not within that lightness spectrum is a misconception about what you actually are. It is a belief that you are something which you are not. You are not the darkness. But there is a possibility that you can misconceive of self as the darkness. And this is demonstrated by you entertaining sadness. I am sad. Well, no, actually you're not. From the limited perspective of the avatar, yes, that illusion is possible. But in the greater reality of what you actually are, it is not possible for you to be the sadness. And the belief that you are sad is a function of the mind, which isn't really you. However, that is an entirely different rabbit hole which I'm not going to enter during this channel. So, I'll finish by saying, you're on a journey of self-mastery. And this journey is filled with moments of perfection. Nothing is going wrong. Everything is as it should be. There are no mistakes. And as you are the infinite, invulnerable, immortal being, then what occurs in the moment-to-moment experience is, to a large degree, irrelevant to the larger journey. So, this creates a softness or a looseness to the emotional quality that you can bring to each moment. Because it does not matter what emotional quality I have. It can be this, it can be that, it can be something else. So as it's not important to the degree that I must react in this way, then what is it that I would like to feel? What is the emotional quality that I would like to possess? What would fulfill me? I think I will be grateful. I think I'll be happy, joyful, blissful, loving. And then when you are able to do this in every single moment that you pass through, then congratulations, you have become the master of your emotionality. You have become the master of your energetics. And thereby you have become the master of your manifestation. Because now you will bring to oneself a very natural consequential flow of moments which are conducive to the lightness end of the spiritual spectrum. And that is a life which one desires. That is a life which one enjoys. That is a life which is pleasant to experience. It is really not that difficult. Beneath the unnecessary layers of complexity is the ultimate simplicity of the One. And in a single phrase, it could be said as, choose who you are. Jesus has left the connection, and as always does so with a glowing radiance which rings within the group being which we form. It is a very pleasant experience indeed. We hope that you enjoyed this co-experience with us and with Jesus. We give our gratitude and love to Jesus, and we wish also to express our love and gratitude for you also. Thank you, and we love you.